That's what you are. Unforgettable.
We're recording right now. This is gold.
All right, you're listening to Coding Blocks, episode 22. Subscribe to us and leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, and more using your favorite podcast app.
And visit us at codingblocks.net where you can find show notes, examples, discussion, and more.
And send your feedback, questions, rants, and comments to comments@codingblocks.net and follow us on Twitter @codingblocks or head to www.codingblocks.net and find all our social media links there at the top of the page. So with that, welcome to Coding Blocks. I'm Alan Underwood.
I'm Joe Zach.
And I'm Michael Outlaw.
And start us off with a little bit of news here. First of all, we wanted to thank Anders Bowman, who commented on a prior episode and recommended two tools, TDD Helper and NCrunch. And I actually just installed both of these today, but I haven't used them yet. But NCrunch will basically kind of run your tests in the background. And TDD Helper, I'm actually particularly excited about. It's a Visual Studio plugin that will, it does a bunch of stuff like generate tests and things like that. But it also lets you hop back and forth easily between your tests and your implementations, which is particularly annoying if your files have very similar names. So I thought that was really cool. So thank you, Anders.
Yeah, and that was actually, we've mentioned the book, The Art of Unit Testing. NCrunch was actually one of the tools referenced in that book as well.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. Also, wanted to see if you guys are interested in doing a quick update on your resolutions, which you've already forgotten.
Did everybody cheat and look back to figure out what they were 2 weeks ago?
So if you're following me on any of the social platforms, you would know that I have been incredibly uber social in these past few weeks, and like thousands of tweets and everything. Like you probably know everything I've eaten and every bowel movement I've had.
Great.
Yep. We actually did just get thanked on Twitter for not sharing what we had for lunch.
Yeah, I was totally being sarcastic. Like I haven't really at all.
Yeah,
and I'm still just as guilty as always. Like, you know, I'm not active on any of them, but the little activeness that I am is on Twitter.
Yeah, nice.
So what about you?
I have been whining less about JavaScript. I've been trying to get in touch with my UI side. I did play around with Rust a little bit a couple weekends ago. That was actually really cool. I'm hoping to kind of transition a little bit more to F#, just as a way of kind of gaining perspective to more like functional style. So I would say I've made some baby steps there. And as for stop saving things in the background, true story, I created a folder called temp on the desktop. And while that just sounds like a different desktop folder,
because it is.
The only difference is I only put things in there that I can delete. So I know that, you know, Monday morning or whenever I sit down on my computer, I can just blow that whole folder away and there's nothing important there because I've only saved temporary things in there.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
That works.
He'll create a temp 2 folder for the things that are temporary that he can't delete.
Right.
Yeah, that's how it's going to end up by, you know, like late January.
Untemp.
Yeah.
For me, I have not written any articles, sat down, done any video tutorials or anything yet. So I've still got half the month to go. I'll get something in there.
That's actually a big part of the reason why I haven't started my Ruby training yet, is because I haven't found your course yet on Ruby.
Right. Fair enough.
So I was kind of holding off on that one.
Yeah, fair enough. I get that. I made some progress tonight on the course thing because I've been given a few ideas that maybe I could do the course on. So that might be starting up in the works here pretty soon. So we'll see.
Ruby, here I come.
Yeah. We'll check in again in February.
Yep.
If we don't forget.
Man, we're going to check up on these monthly.
It's January and you're already giving up on your resolutions.
Hey, look.
Better than that. We're like 2 weeks in.
If anybody's driven to the gym in the first 2 weeks of January, they'll know in February that everybody quit on their New Year's resolutions. So
bummer.
We're in good company.
That's another good joke.
Also, we got several reviews here in the past few weeks, which is just awesome. I think one of our consensus favorites was on Stitcher recently from Punforgettable. It was long. It's worth going to Stitcher just to read this guy's thing. He basically tells us that we're all about to turn into JavaScript code monkeys anyway. So.
Which I'm not going to whine about.
Well,
I'm not arguing.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's Punforgettable. So how can you not like that?
That's right.
Absolutely fantastic review. So thank you on that. We also got one from Johnny Chu, Adam the Hun, Illusteria, and Jeremy RR, and Spitz Gobi, which I think we might have mentioned him before. So
high five.
Yeah, thank you to all of you guys for taking the time to go up there and write reviews for us. They are super appreciated, and we look forward to more. We read all of them, so definitely appreciate it.
Yep, thank you very much. So actually, kind of on that note, this episode we want to do a little bit of Q&A. We've gotten a lot of emails that we've been slacking on responding to, so we wanted to kind of...
My bad.
Yeah, we put Michael in charge
email
of
count
social.
as a social platform?
Yep, you're in charge of it now.
Crap.
So we wanted to kind of address some of those on air and, of course, get your guys' feedback as well, too. So the first question came to us from... I'm going to be looking up after we start talking, and I'll mention it in a second. But it basically was around organizing common code. So, how do you arrange namespaces, things like that, enum. So just wanted to see what you guys thought about that.
This came from James.
So
I know, Joe, you're very big on this. I have thoughts. We'll let you kick this one off. Like, what's your big deal? So what he actually said when he wrote us, and it was a fairly long email, but we'll pick out the pieces of it. Like, he had some projects where he worked on where it was basically dictated that he had to put all his enums in one namespace, and maybe, do other things like that. Or
like, I just threw up in my ear listening to you say that.
And he also talked about, like, he had to break things out into multiple namespaces, and so every time that he wanted to do any piece of code, he would have to bring in multiple dependencies and references and all that. So
yep,
it's something that we've all seen as programmers, and I think a lot of it comes from people, when they start something out, they have good intentions, and then it kind of gets out of control. So Jay-Z, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, of course, I like lots of stuff, so I, advocate for lots of folders, lots of projects, lots of files with lots of little functions in them. Actually, not that many functions, but lots in the grand scheme of things. So I definitely, I've played around with a lot of different things, and I've kind of gotten there after doing a lot of experimentation. Like, I start a lot of side projects, and I don't finish them. And what I do most of the time, the first couple hours, is basically just play with the solution file. And like, here's my library. Here's my. I've done the enums thing actually. I used to call that my definitions project, where I would have interfaces and stuff like that. Just kind of experimenting. And the reason I would do that would be to avoid cyclic dependencies, because I was doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing, like having dependencies kind of cross namespaces and stuff, which is gross. So I probably understand why that company was doing that with the enums. So, I feel the pain, but anyway, that's just kind of my preference right now, is basically to spread it all out. Like, I would be most happy if I had the same number of files in every folder, and each file had the same number of lines.
Wow.
It's like, I'm not a very OCD person. When it comes to code, like, it'd be so nice to have everything lined up like little soldiers.
That's interesting.
So I guess my take on that, though, when he was talking about the structure of it, especially like the whole concept of having like a namespace or even worse, like a project just for like enums or extensions. Like, the thing that I have, the problem I have with that is, like, if maybe you were just writing, like, here's this library of things and I'm not using them anywhere, but here, you're welcome to it, then, but I can't even think of like something valid for that. Like, generally in a real application, my vote would be like, keep it somewhat, keep it close.
I agree
right?
with that. Yeah.
Now, whether or not it's like within the same project, and then inside of that project, you have it in a folder, I'm going to have less of an issue with that. It's like in your definitions, it's like maybe you have your like my app project, and then you have the definitions folder that you have them in there. I'm more okay with that than I am like an entire namespace or I should say project just for like enums as an example.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I agree. Like, if you have enums, they need to be close to where the definition is, right? Like, if you have some sort of class that has an enum, it should be near that class. It should not be in some sort of common shared project out there, because it has no context where it sits, which is my biggest problem with it. Then again, you're also now bringing in a bunch of things everywhere that you need to include those references that also are out of context. So I don't really like that. So I definitely...
Well, context is a great point to bring up here. Like, that's all the more reason why it kind of makes more sense to keep it close. And he started this started from him, like, going back to his email from the I is for interface show, which I believe that was like episode 1.
Yeah.
And Joe had made a comment about he hates that they have to start with the
I.
Yeah, so because it messed up in your folder directory structure. That's what's I guess spurred his email here.
Yeah, because I don't like putting them in their own project.
Well, one thing that's interesting about that, and I'll cross over to Java real quick, is I worked with some pretty good Java developers. And one thing that kind of drove me crazy is, so Microsoft has their thing where they do I for their interface files, right? Well, the way that they were structuring things in the way that they were doing it in Java is they'd have, I don't know, person. That would be your interface, and then they would have person impl. And it's like, okay, pick your poison. Like, I at least prefer the I because that's a little bit more explicit, right? Like impl, come on. And so, again,
but that's one of those things that kind of varies by community, though. Too.
It does, and I'm not throwing stones here. I mean, these are all things that various different communities and different groups do, but
they kind of took off as a convention among the Java community to do the impls. But I'm with you, like. It definitely is like, which battle do you like better? Do you like the impl or do you like the I in the beginning?
I mean, the argument for the impl is, at least if you do that, it keeps the class and the interface together, right? But it's
but
not
what I
as
don't like
explicit.
about it, though, is that, like, what happens if, okay, fine, you create a person impl, and now what if I want to create a person, my own impl, right? Like,
you're not the real impl now.
Hey,
right?
by the
You're
way,
impl
for
too.
all of you guys listening and have no idea what we're talking about, impl is IMPL for implementation.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, the whole idea is you're trying to signify that, hey, this implements this interface. Right? But now what if I need to create another class that implements that interface?
Then you have to give it a real name.
Yeah, now it's going to be outlaw impl.
Yeah.
I mean,
person impl.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it. I wish there was another way to do it. But
Loompa impl.
Yep.
So, anyways, I guess getting away from that part of it. So, like, talking about the enums, we definitely think they should be closer to where they belong, and that's kind of goes along with what Joe said about spreading it out. It goes with what I feel about, if you have a class that's using that enum needs to either belong in that same file or real close to it.
Well, what if there's 4 DLLs that all need those enums?
And that's kind of interesting. So we've all run across those problems, right? If it's truly something shared, I don't think there's a problem having a common project. Like, we've done that, right? Like, let's think about, like, anytime you're doing session type stuff in a web app. We could all pretty much agree that you should basically try and rip out any session calls directly in your code, right? And then have something, if nothing else, for being able to test it later, is have another class that would be like your shared session type stuff, and then it can either use like a web context, or it could use an XML file, or it could use whatever, right? So those are good putting off on the side, but I mean, enums are kind of special.
Yeah,
I feel like we're beating up on enums, though.
No, but it's a good point, right? Like,
but I mean, like, overall, though, like, the question was, just around, like, it was more general than just around enums,
right.
Code organization. Because, like, one thing that came to mind too while we were talking about this was, talking about the multiple namespaces and whatnot. Like, I'm all for, if you can create I guess really, I'm thinking more like project level. If you could create a project that is self-contained and has, and try to have like few interdependent, or zero dependencies on other projects, that'd be an ideal world, right? And then, I don't care if you have like 5 of those that are, that I can use independently that aren't going to have dependencies on other ones, but,
minimizing dependencies is a big deal.
I think that's the deal, right? So, like, I guess looking at this, if you create something that now, if you were going to go look at a map of those things and you're going to have lines going back and forth and crisscrossing all over the place, something's probably wrong.
Oh, you actually use that?
Oh man, that is when it looks like literally nothing but a bunch of lines, like somebody took one of what are those? The
Man, if it's
spirographs
not-
when you were a kid? Little
If the screen
spirograph?
isn't just black, then you're doing it wrong.
But
It's awesome.
But like I don't know if you were to have something like let's say user type, right, which is something that might be used throughout an entire application. Maybe that enum exists in a common shared place in a common namespace. But if you're talking about something that's like class specific, then I think it should be stored closer to the class. If it's got some sort of global reach to it, then maybe you move that out. But I think having some sort of directive where basically it's like all enums go here and all of these go here, then I think
Oh, I definitely think as a blanket rule, that's bad.
yeah, it should not be done that way.
But there's cases where it's good.
Yeah.
Because, if you're talking about multiple DLLs, at that point your enums are basically data.
Right.
It's like not much different from having an XML file or something. So
And
I
it's,
get that.
but back to your definitions thing, I mean, we actually worked on something like this together where I thought that if the core of your application, there's something consistent. If you're running a shopping cart or something and you have products, it's not a bad idea to maybe have a definitions thing that multiple projects can leverage, because that product is the core of what everything
Yeah,
is.
so it's a common language.
Yeah, so
Right?
that's why I'm saying, like, if it's a global reach, if it's something that spans multiple things, let's say that you have processes that run over here and then your main shopping cart's over here, and they all
but
need to use
again,
this product.
to this organization structure. So you have the products is defined in, say, a separate project.
Yep.
But next to that project class is the project. Or I say project class. The product class.
Mm-hmm.
Next to it in the same project is the interface for product.
Well, what we're saying is you might take that interface and put it into the common project, right? The dependency.
I guess that's why I was saying you wouldn't.
Well, so the reason I'm saying is, let's say that you have something that processes these products to update inventory overnight, right? That's not going to be in your main app, right? That's going to be a separate thing. So now what are you going to do? Are you going to copy that product interface over into this new app? Or would you rather have that in a common definitions area where all these different, separate console apps or whatever could leverage that same interface? And that's what I'm saying.
I feel like you're arguing for the side that that his company was doing.
I'm saying you look at it on a case-by-case basis, right? So if you know that it's core to everything you do, then it might make sense to put it over there. If it's something that's literally just like, hey, we got to buy one, get one type thing, like if you have a sale type thing, I don't know, just coming up with something off the top of my head, then maybe that stays closer to the sales class or something like that.
I guess the way I'm going to sum this up, at least from my point of view, is that more often than not, if you had to view this as like erring on the side of caution, then more often than not you should keep it close so that the context is there.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I like that. One other thing I wanted to add: make sure your folders and your namespaces match, or else I get upset. And also, this is something I learned.
So does ReSharper.
Yeah, ReSharper and Endepend actually taught me this next one, which is avoid crossing the streams. By streams, I mean the namespaces. So you don't want to have a namespace, A that's dependent on B and B that's dependent on A. It's just a nasty code smell, and it's easy to slip into something, and it's can be hard to remove, as I found with my own projects. So I definitely learned something there.
Yeah, I mean, and you'll typically see that. I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody will make that mistake on occasion, but you'll typically see that with newer programmers when they're like, well, I need something over there, I'll just add a reference to it, right?
But you can't compile if you have circular references.
Not on DLLs, but you can on namespaces.
Not on DLLs, but on namespaces. But the namespace is going to come. Well, I guess I'm thinking if the namespace compiles into a DLL.
Yeah, because think about it, the namespace is really just if you do a using, it's a convenience for popping that that fully qualified name all throughout your code.
Right.
So all it needs is the signature information. All I know is I did it, and
I mean, I've definitely
schooled me.
seen circular dependencies that I've had to go back and undo.
Yep.
Well,
I've definitely ran across that before in various code bases.
To add to what Outlaw said, I agree. Keep it close to where it belongs, and then reevaluate as necessary. Right? Unless you were really going through a true elongated SDLC, which I've never actually been in a company that truly used the SDLC all the way through. and if you do, it's usually multi-year projects. If you don't have that kind of environment, then refactor that stuff out, right? Like as you get in there and you notice that things, you need to write a console app over here that uses the same stuff, but you don't want to bring in everything. Well, then at that point, you start breaking out those things that are commonly shared. So keep it close.
I feel like life as a developer is just a constant refactoring effort.
I agree.
The good days, yes.
It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, even if it's brand new code that you just wrote, you're going to look at it and be like, oh, I can change that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and that's part of being a programmer, right? Like you're constantly trying to improve things and make it more maintainable. So I think we, in consensus, we could say the blanket rules are bad. You know.
Yeah, I definitely don't.
Down
like
with
that.
dogma.
Like,
Yep.
So,
yeah.
All right. So moving on to the next thing, we got another email from Anon. We'll say, I believe it was anonymous. Not real sure, but
Wait, Anonymous is writing us?
Anonymous
Don't
is
mess
right.
up, man.
Yeah, right. We like you. No,
No problems there.
yeah. So this one was really, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that get hit with this. What do you do trying to graduate from schoolwork to work? And he brought up a ton of different, I guess, angles that were kind of driving him crazy because he's a junior in school right now, and he's trying to figure out, hey, how do I get a job in the real world when I get out there? And one of the things that he put, and I had to quote this because it was just awesome, how do I become the tech polymath savant when I can't, go get the skills that are needed, when I can't get the job to get the skills that I need when I don't have the skills that I need to get the job.
Right, because you need 15 years of experience in Angular.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's only been out for... Doesn't matter.
So the first thing I want to say, though, is if you are somebody in tech and you are a junior or even a sophomore, I don't even know at what point you can do this. Go try and do an internship somewhere.
That's what I was going to say, man.
I mean,
co-op or intern.
Do that.
Because I think at least for co-op, I think after 2 years,
I think you can.
You can start
as
co-oping.
you're a junior.
So co-oping, you're basically, and I co-oped. You work for a quarter, and then you go to school for a quarter, and then you work for a quarter, you go to school for, unless you're on a semester system.
Yep.
But basically the point is like, it's school on, work off, work on, school off kind of
Or
scenario.
if you do an intern, you can work while you're going to school.
Well, eventually, like in my case, I eventually, was able to transition it to like full-time school and full-time co-op, which isn't, necessarily the typical scenario. But the point is though, like, if you're in school, it's easier for you to go out and find work and get some real world work experience while you're still a student at school, because the requirements for you to get that job are going to be less, right? And it's going to make the things that you do in school easier for you to understand, because now you're going to have a real world experience to relate those school experiences to, right? So it's going to make it a whole lot easier to take in that information in school. But then by the time you do get out of school, now to any employer that you want to go to, they're going to see like, well, you weren't just, using your time in school just to party. You were actually trying to
get a foot in the door, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And not to mention like just the networking you'll get from meeting people in the field, of whatever your field of choice is. And I mean, this is like co-oping and interning. That is regardless of, being a developer or not.
Right. Any kind of job.
I don't care what it is.
If you're in marketing, go get a marketing job somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing, guys. Like, not all internships pay, but there are some that do, and they pay pretty well, which is, fairly shocking. So that's definitely one thing to do. But I will add as something on top of that, when you go in to interview for something like a job that you want to get as an internship or a co-op, interview the company too. Find out what you're going to be doing, because what's going to add the most value to you. Because I've been in situations at companies where we'll have interns and they'll throw them on some kind of garbage, project that's never really going to do anything. And really, you might as well just done some sort of project at school. as opposed to find out, hey, am I going to be touching code that's going to be live? Am I going to
Very
be working?
important.
Yeah.
I know of at least one company, and I'm debating on whether or not I should say it, that at least back there for a while, their big co-op opportunity was they'd bring in people who literally just manned phones on a help desk.
Yeah, it's garbage.
They were taking anybody. You didn't have to be a developer or what, because you weren't going to touch code. So in terms of like value that job brought to your experience, it was pretty nil.
And also, you can go into a place thinking that you're going to be coding, and they might have something where you're going to be doing desktop support or something like that. Make it clear, hey, I want to come in, I want to work on code, I want to, what I want out of this is I want to be able to walk away understanding some business behind these decisions that are made, because that's one of the things, right? Like, you can get in somewhere and you can code. It could be just like doing a project in school, but if you're not working on real code that matters, you're not going to get introduced to the real world problems. Like, I mean, I've had interns that I was, working with where they'd be like, well, I deleted this line of code and it worked. And I'm like, well, what did you break by deleting that line of code, right? And that's not something that you get unless you're thrown into that situation. So
did either of you intern or co-op?
I did not.
Nope.
No. So I'm the only one.
And honestly,
I would say, man, it was awesome. Like, at least from my perspective, like I definitely feel that it was a big help to me, and also to like further my interest in that career path. But I mean, it wasn't like I was doing a crazy amount of coding either, really, in the beginning. But it was just just being more around it in general was also just
getting into the culture.
Yeah. I mean, there was something to be said for that too,
and like you said, the networking cannot be understated. It's huge.
No. Yeah.
I mean, the only reason I didn't intern was I was already programming before I went into college, so I wasn't, and I was making good money doing it. So I wasn't looking for that type of experience. But if I hadn't been, that would have been my first avenue. I absolutely would, because I mean, if you're in a college, they have resources. They have departments where you go to, you say, hey, I want to get into this, and they will place you, usually at a fairly decent sized company. So,
yeah, usually there was like well, I'm thinking back when we were on a quarter system, but you knew the time of year. Well, if you went and found out, there was a specific time of year where the various companies would start coming around the campus, looking for people to co-op the next cycle, right? So,
yeah, and it's really, the network's really big too, because they always say that the best hires are basically friends. So it's much easier, much cheaper than going through Recruiter. So, and what you guys mentioned earlier too, they say that asking good questions, is one of the best ways to do well in an interview. So show that you care about the company, and that you'll probably figure out a few problems that they might have that you can kind of speak to. So I had a couple of things I want to throw in there too. So. Definitely learn FizzBuzz. So not only will being able to do FizzBuzz while you're asleep and write it backwards, forwards, do it recursively, do it a bunch of different ways, know that thing inside and out because you're going to see it, and it really does kind of cover a lot of the more basic things. So if you get a code test, you probably do well on it. And also wanted to make sure that you're able to speak about things intelligently, whether it's design patterns or cloud or programming. You don't have to know every pattern. You just have to know the role of patterns and why people think it's important. And I think the best way to pick that up is through networking, podcasts, meetups, stuff like that. So you can start kind of like talking basically like a programmer. So I think that's really important. And also Reddit Hacker News, although you can't really believe anything that you read.
Wait a minute. I can't believe the kitty cats?
No. Reddit is basically just a place to post puns after people post content.
Pun forgettable.
Yep, and trolling, anger, rants. Also, as I said, LinkedIn is a great way to kind of network. So if you meet somebody, you're cool in college, whatever, just go ahead and, friend them up, and you guys can start exchanging those.
Well, let's be honest. If they're in college, they're probably already on more social platforms than I am.
That's true.
And they probably use them more than I do.
Make sure you have a good picture on LinkedIn though too. There's definitely a lot of interns that like the first thing you do in a resume is basically go look them up, and so many aren't on there. They don't have a picture. There's nothing on there. It just makes it look like they
prune your Facebook timeline.
Yeah, true.
or lock it down. But at least with LinkedIn, no, seriously get a good picture of yourself up there. And make sure that you've kind of groomed it to be what you want to present, right? Like you may not have a resume built yet because you don't have any experience, but let them know what you're looking for. Have your school in there, have your study, have the just some things that you've done. Like if you've messed around with any open source projects, put a little bio or something about yourself on there.
Yeah, and it shows that you're interested in actually becoming a professional, not like you like playing Xbox and just woke up and mom kicked you out of the house so you need to get a job.
What was that? Right.
That's right.
A couple other things I want to touch on though, real quick. Going back to if you do the internship, and I also want to touch on if you don't. But if you do the internship, another thing to know about that is key that we didn't mention is, actually, Outlaw said that his transitioned into it. A lot of times, if you do a good job at your internship, they'll want to hire you and talk about a way to get the skills that you need to potentially get the next job you want.
Oh, I was just saying that it like transitioned into me co-oping. It like a 40-hour job,
right?
Like because originally when I started co-oping, it was co-op for a quarter and then go to school for a quarter and then co-op for a quarter and then go to school for a quarter. But I guess it was my third time. It just as luck kind of would have it, the way it transitioned was it wasn't just for a quarter; it was for year. Or so, like it wasn't like for a finite period of time like it originally started out to be.
Right.
So
yeah,
that situation might have just been, unique. Your mileage may vary, but yeah,
it's definitely a way to get your foot in the door. And like I said, if you do a good job while you're there, then you might have an offer at the end of it. And then let's talk about if you don't go that route. You don't have any skills because you don't have a job, and you don't have a job because you don't have any skills. Pretty much what I'd say is the same thing that I say to anybody. If you go on a job interview, it's like studying for a test, right? If you go to a place that says that they want C# or they want Java, and you go in there and you have no idea about OO programming, and you walk in the door completely blind, you didn't Google what common Java interview questions are or any of that kind of stuff, then you set yourself up for failure. Yes, there are
you probably don't want to try to go into a programming internship and not already know the first thing about programming.
Well, not internship. I'm talking about like the job interview. So let's say that you've made it through your senior, now you're trying to get out there in the real world. You didn't do the internship, right? So my thing is first off,
how'd you miss all of that in all your classes?
Well, no, so here's the thing. I've interviewed a fair share of interns, and the thing is, they might know they've heard the word polymorphism. You tell them to write it up on the board, and a lot of them struggle, right? Because, let's be honest. If you haven't written a lot of code outside of assignments, then a lot of those concepts are sort of foreign to you, right? Like it's like any test you study for, it's gone the next day.
Yeah, I don't need someone to regurgitate the definition for me. I need someone to actually do the work.
Right. So
I just feel like we could do as we get into interviewing, I just feel like that could be an entire episode just by itself.
Oh, there's
solely on interviewing.
No question. But I definitely think though, the short end of it is, if you're looking at jobs that are saying they're going to pay $35,000 a year, but they require 10 years of C++, 5 years of Java, whatever, then chances are you don't even want that job. And I'm not trying to be facetious here, but another thing you have to keep in mind is a lot of times recruiters get a hold of those job postings and they put all that garbage on there. So the company might say, hey, we'd like to have somebody that has this experience, but it's not necessarily a necessity.
And that's why I made the joke about needing 15 years of Angular experience, because I've seen a lot of times too where I don't know if it's the recruiter or the company, but like somewhere along the line there was a disconnect, and it might not even be. It could be a company, but it could be like some HR person in the company,
right,
who might not be
they're not technical.
Yeah. And someone tells them, we need Angular experience. And so they just throw out like, okay, well, this is the type of number that I normally associate to things. So I need somebody with X number of years
5
of
years,
experience.
and it's only been there for 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And when I'm hiring someone, I don't care if you have 2 or 3 years or 1 year of whatever. I want to know that you're not going to make my life harder if we hire you.
Yeah, and
that's all I really care about.
That is key. And I mean, honestly, if you walk into an interview like that, and you're a novice, you're a beginner, be prepared to write some code, whether it's on the board, whether it's in a computer. If somebody does something, then you want to do that. And then one last part on this: what makes a rock star programmer? Anybody?
Is this a joke?
No. This is one of the questions that he had in regards to it.
No, I know it was, but it was just the way you put it.
Yeah, I think it's almost kind of like a dirty word nowadays. Like you'll still see companies occasionally say that they're looking to hire ninjas or something, but that's kind of like
I hate that term.
Yeah, and it's kind of gotten a stigma attached now. So I would definitely not put Rockstar on your resume.
No, but would you agree that probably for me, if I'm working with somebody, whether it's a beginner or an expert, I want them to be resourceful. Everything else can be learned, taught, whatever. But if somebody's first thing is to come bother somebody else because they didn't take the time to look something up, or they weren't thorough, then
it just makes you want to send them to the you want to send them back a link for let me Google that for you.
Right. No, seriously.
We should include that as a resource of the week.
Yeah,
in the
definitely.
Somebody that's resourceful is probably one of the biggest things. I mean, there are people that are. We've talked about wide versus deep programmers before. I don't even care. Just if somebody gives you something, be resourceful enough to go try and figure out what you can. And if you have a question about a part of the implementation, then cool, let's do it. But don't come to me after you get a problem and be like, hey, what do I do?
That's being resourceful though. That's like a personal trait. Like, how do you even? You can't teach that.
I think you can.
When they're kids.
It's a tough one, but that is probably one of the most. I think that people that can become rock star programmers are the ones that they're stubborn. They can't give up because they have to succeed, right? And to do that, you have to be resourceful. You can't just pester other people because you'd never get anything done. And they won't get anything done, and then everybody will be frustrated. So I think most rock star programmers are tinkerers. They're tinkerers, right? They're people that they get a problem, and then they start digging until they find it. And that's not saying that you have to silo yourself so that you never ask people questions. There's definitely a point where...
No, there's definitely value in like asking, but there's a difference between like getting to the point to where you have enough background information on it that you can try to speak intelligently to the problem, to whoever you're speaking to, versus, hey, I haven't even bothered to read the first sentence on this problem. Will you explain it to me like I'm 5? Because, Because at that point, like, ain't nobody got time for that.
We will leave.
We all have jobs to
link.
do.
We will leave a link for those who have not been blessed with what we just heard.
We all have jobs to do. That's my point, though. So, like, you can't pester me about something if you haven't even taken the time to look into it for 5 minutes. Like, why should I take any interest in helping you solve it? It's kind of like that old saying about what is it? Oh God, I can't even remember it now. Hold on, I'll come back with it.
Yeah. Also wanted to throw out there, starting side projects is a good way to kind of do some like real world kind of programming and having something to show off on the resume or talk about. So.
And if you do that, use Git, because then you can use pull requests. And honestly,
I know what I was going to say now. Sorry. You not even taking the time to look into it doesn't necessarily make it my problem. It's kind of like going back to that old saying: "A poor planning on your part doesn't constitute an emergency on my part."
Right.
Right. It feels very similar to that cliche statement.
I would agree. But the side project thing that Joe just brought up, one of the beautiful things about this, start it. If you start doing things wrong, or if it's something that's enticing enough, other people will come along. And if they're using Git, then you could absolutely get them to put in pull requests. And then all of a sudden you get other people's perspective on your own code.
God, I love Git.
So definitely an interesting thing. All right, Outlaw, move us into the next one.
Can Git be my resource that I like? Git.
Every episode.
You should just do everything in Git.
Yeah.
You should make use Git for your file system backup. Okay. So, I'm introducing the next one.
Yes.
So, Maze?
Maze?
Maz?
Not sure. Maaz.
Maz? Okay, we'll go with that.
Yes.
And if we're wrong, blame Alan.
Yes, fair enough.
Why program in Silverlight when it doesn't support many mobile platforms?
It's kind of a loaded question.
It's a fairly easy one to answer, right?
There's some dirty jokes that I could give examples of, but yeah, the answer is just don't use it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's pretty much dead. Whether Microsoft has officially announced it or not, Silverlight 5 came out in 2011. Last minor security update was in July of 2014. So,
my understanding from reading about it is that they're supporting it from the point of view of like break fix or security, but
till 2021,
right? But it's not under it's dead.
Yeah,
there's not.
They're not actively.
They're moving away
it.
from that,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really something you want to add to your resume now.
So the real question shouldn't be like, why program in Silverlight when it doesn't support many mobile platforms? The real question there is, why program in Silverlight?
And that's a very legit question, and probably one that you should ask yourself if you're doing any new stuff.
Well, the real question is really, what should I do instead?
Yes.
Then, right?
Yes.
And there are a lot of different options. We've talked about Xamarin quite a bit. Cordova is another one. PhoneGap, Titanium, Appcelerator. So there's other options. I don't really know enough to kind of speak to or recommend any of them in particular, but...
Well, I will tell you this. If you are interested in doing cross-platform mobile development, probably Titanium should be one of the first ones that you look at, simply because it's free. I think the only thing you have to pay for is like the App Store license, developer license, if you want to push into like an iPhone or something like that.
But Cordova is an Apache project, though.
Cordova is, yeah.
It basically lets you write HTML and JavaScript. So, yeah, really, if you want to write things on all platforms, then HTML and JavaScript is fortunately the way to go.
Yeah, and actually, my tip of the week is actually going to be one of those. But yeah, so don't do Silverlight.
I'm a big fan of this is definitely going against probably the current market trends. But like my personal take is, let's take games out of the equation for a moment, okay? And I say that because game development, you typically want access to more iron, right? You want more processor, but so aside from games, though, unless you have need for some of the low-level subsystems on a mobile device, I'm kind of the opinion. Then why are you bothering with the app? Just do the HTML. Just do the mobile site for it. That's my personal opinion on it. I know that there's a lot of companies out there, though, that is from a branding perspective.
Yes.
So there's definitely value in having your icon on that homepage. But
I don't know.
I definitely see like a wider reach if it's a mobile friendly site.
I will say this, though.
A well done mobile
There is a
site.
nice convenience to having that app icon on your phone or on your tablet to where you're not going to a website, right?
Yeah, but you can also just
make it a wrapper. You could.
No, but I mean, no. What I was going to say is like any of these mobile platforms have the ability to save that page as an icon on your home screen.
Yeah, and I haven't seen too many people do that. You're talking about the web apps that you can do like on iOS or anything. I'm
not even talking about so there's the one extreme where you could make it a feel like a native application that is just technically. I'm thinking of like the Amazon Cloud Reader app where it was just an app that ran inside of Safari on iOS, for example, where you could save it to your home screen, but it was in it was nothing more than a web page in reality, but it totally didn't look or act like one. It felt like you were inside of an app.
Right.
I wasn't even talking about that. I wasn't even really thinking of that extreme when I was saying that my preferences for the web page, because I've kind of gotten out of the mood too for like apps in general, and I'm not trying to start.
I think you're in the minority there.
Yes, totally. I totally am, and I totally get that.
Well,
but
I'm on board.
But here's the thing, and in this next statement, let me preface this by saying I am not trying to start any flame wars, okay? But Android ruined me for apps.
God, I'd say iOS did for me, honestly.
And here's the reason why. Okay? Here's the reason why. It's because so each store, iOS versus Android, they have their own little models there for how things are sandboxed, right? And iOS takes the point of view of, hey, let's install the app, and then as you go along, I'm going to ask you for this permission. Hey, can I use your camera? No? Okay, cool. Hey, can I have access to your contacts? No? Okay, cool. Whereas, Android is like the fear tactic, right? Like
up front.
It's everything up front. Like, hey, man, they want access to all your contacts,
your text
messages, all your phone logs. You okay with installing this app? No.
Yeah,
no,
I've definitely
I'm really not okay with installing
apps.
that app.
And you don't like them telling you about that?
Well, no. So I definitely appreciate them telling it. I prefer the way iOS does it. Like, hey, as this app needs it, it'll ask, and you can accept or deny those individual permissions, as it's requested. Versus Android's approach, which is all up front. It wants these 10 permissions, and you either take them all or you don't install the app. But it was because of that Android kind of ruined me of the habit where I got to the point where I was like, you know what? If this company provides the same thing by a web page,
I'll go to their page.
I'm just going to go to the page.
Yeah, because they can't access it.
Yeah, I'm going to hit it through a browser. And if they don't, maybe someone does provide the same thing through just a browser, and I kind of got out of the habit of the apps.
I think that's kind of a nature of how people who develop apps, though, just really abuse what they're using on your phone. And that's... Yeah, it's a shame. That's the way it's going.
I really think that that's a problem in the Android model. That it's surprising that it has lasted that long.
Yeah,
but you can write native apps with quotes around it in HTML and JavaScript now. That's what stuff like Cordova and whatever does.
You can, yes.
It's not a great experience, but
now I know that for a while there, I don't know if Apple's still bad about it, but there for a while there, if you had a mobile web page, and you had an app that was just nothing more than a wrapper around that, and you tried to submit it to the App Store,
they're like, no,
depending
thanks.
on your reviewer, you might not have.
Which makes sense because you can change out the back end on it real easy, and that's what they don't want.
Well, yeah.
Well, going back to that, we mentioned Titanium, PhoneGap, Cordova, Xamarin. There's another one that's actually kind of interesting that Windows is doing now for their cross-platform type stuff, and it's called WinJS, and we'll have a link in there. And it looks kind of cool. Who knows how long they'll support it, but right now, kind of neat.
All right, so on to resources we like. This is actually not really a resource, but I like it a lot, so I threw it in here. This is a really cool blog post about generating mazes. And this is actually by a guy that's really cool. I forget his name. I'm going to look it up right now, but
cool guy,
and he wrote a really cool book too.
So cool, you forgot his name,
Bob Nystrom, right?
Well, with a name like that.
Well, if you went to this blog post, you wouldn't be picking on me right now because it's awesome. He's come up with he's kind of cobbled together a couple different algorithms and just ends up kind of creating this cool little maze with rooms, and he talks about how he created it and why and the kind of patterns he put to use, and he's got a really cool way of visualizing it, so it's neat and it really breaks it down really well, and it's a really well written article.
I mean, there's dungeons, so what's not to like?
Yeah, exactly. So who hasn't tried to create a video game, right? So
well, that is cool.
Yeah, and I also wanted to pitch his book because I ended up buying it and reading a little bit, and it's game programming patterns, and what it is like he kind of looks at like design patterns specifically from the viewpoint of games. So he looks at patterns that are used widely in games, like the command pattern, and I forgot there's a couple others in the book. I'm still in the beginning, but it's just a really cool take on it, and it's a real practical view of these design patterns. And so I'm still reading it, but I just thought it was really good, and I dare you to not like this blog post.
Holy smokes, that thing is insane.
Long.
If you just click the image up at the top, okay, you got to go to this link and at least click that first thing and watch it do its thing. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and he's got the source code.
I feel like
for
I'm
it.
watching it's definitely like watching Snake.
Yeah.
Except cooler after you see it finish.
And he pretty much walks through every single design decision.
Fractal pattern.
So I've actually been looking at like maze creation and stuff, and there's a lot of cool information out there. So if you're looking for a project to do, this is a pretty good one. So,
are you into game development?
I enjoy gaming and I enjoy programming. So I've definitely started and never finished many things.
That's kind of interesting. While I enjoy gaming, I thoroughly do not enjoy the idea of writing a game. I don't. It's never been anything that interests me.
Yeah,
I do, but I spend so much time.
Have you played Destiny yet?
Man, ever since Christmas when Sony PlayStation Network was down,
oh my God, how did we not talk about?
Oh God, yeah. Ever since
that, you said it once, say it 2 more times, it might show up.
I feel guilty already saying it the one time.
Yeah, we'll bleep it out.
I haven't played it yet.
We totally should. That'd be awesome. Now I want to say it 2 more times.
Yeah, we don't want them shutting down our site. But no, I haven't played it yet. At any rate, very cool. Awesome resource.
So Titanfall? No, neither of you have Titanfall. You played Titanfall.
No.
I thought you said you did.
I've played it
PS4.
on the PC.
No, but didn't you say you played it on?
I've played it on the PC.
Oh, it was you.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah?
It's a lot of fun. I like it. You've watched it.
No, I've played it.
You did play it?
Yeah, I've played it now.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it's fun. Call of Duty has ruined me, man.
Oh, Call of Duty's so good.
It has ruined me.
Twitch.
So but you said you haven't played Destiny yet.
No,
I know you
no,
have.
I haven't.
You played Destiny. So here's what I mean is that like Call of Duty, the gameplay just seems so much faster that like in Titanfall or Destiny, I just feel like, all right, come on, let's do this already.
I always thought Halo was slow, and Destiny is a Halo game. No matter what you say about it, it really is. It plays exactly. Even how you jump, it's like, boing.
Dude, after you go back to Halo after playing Call of Duty, you feel
So
like it's
slow.
child's play. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there was I still have a lot of fun with Halo, but I will say, huge letdown. Okay, because what's today's date? So, well, it is not going to matter. The point is like there's a few more days left of Halo 5 multiplayer, and I gotta say I'm disappointed. It is not it. Oh my God, is it slow? Like if the gameplay, like we mentioned Titanfall or Destiny, like if I'm thinking that those are slow, oh my God, Halo 5 is so slow.
It's like running through molasses the whole time.
Like I don't know if it's just because they're getting hammered and to get a on a server, but yeah, it's. I'm sorry for that rant on gaming. This is what you get for bringing up a blog on gaming.
Yeah.
Call of Duty, man.
So let's get into the tips of the week now. Go ahead, Outlaw.
Well, so I was going to mention, like, as the resources I like is Git. So if you're not already using
Always.
Git. Oh my God, I love it. So here's an awesome little Git tip for you. So let's say you have some file, and there's a bunch of different changes in that file, and you want to commit only some of those changes, all right, but not all of them. And but you also don't want to have to delete the things that you don't want to commit. Okay. And what I mean by that is like, maybe you have some things in there that are like, debug statements or, a method that you're not quite finished with or whatever, but, you don't want to delete it, but you don't want to commit it either, but you want to commit the other parts. So you can interactively go through a file and commit the pieces, or let me say stage the pieces of the changes that you want to stage to the commit. So what you do is, now this is Git command line, okay? So if you're not on command line with me, we already have an issue here, but definitely get on command line. So you'll do a git space add space -p and then the file name, and then it'll interactively bring up each individual change and ask you, do you want to stage this one or not, right? And there's a whole slew of options. Like it'll bring up probably a total of like 10 different options that you can use. So it's not only like, do you want to stage it or not stage it, but you can also say, you know what, let me decide later if I want to do that one, or things like that. So you could go to the man page for Git add, just Google it, and it'll be the first link that'll pop up.
And it was P as in like parts or pieces?
I think
Patch.
partial.
Patch.
Oh, patch.
P as in patch. Okay.
And sorry, so thank you for clarifying that. And you can select only the pieces. So like maybe you have a change at the top of your file that you do want to commit and a change at the bottom of the file you don't want to commit. So when it brings up that first change set, you can say, yep, that one, or no, not that one. Now here's another trick. If you have already, let's say you have this class foobar.java, and you already did a git add foobar.java. So it's already staged for your next commit. And you're like, oh, crap. I didn't want to commit all of that. There's some of those change sets that I don't want to commit. No problem. Git has you covered. You could do the same thing, but in the opposite direction by doing a git space reset space -p, again, like patch, and then the file name, and it'll do the exact opposite. It'll say, do you want to unstage this commit or not, right? And again, it's going to be the same options that it's giving you, but in this time, instead of asking you, do you want to stage the commit, it's going to ask you, do you want to unstage the commit?
So does it keep your file changes still in place, but it's only staging the changes?
So what you'll see after you do this operation, again by command line, is that after doing this, if you do a git status, okay, git space status, what you'll see is, in the case of foobar.java, you'll see foobar.java added as a staged file to be committed and as an unstaged file to be committed.
Very nice.
And if you then do a git diff on foobar.java, you'll see the parts of foobar.java that have not been staged for the commit.
That's beautiful. So
Sounds
you
like
keep all your changes.
Yep, and it's a great way of committing untested code.
I mean, it's like there's so many little awesome bits about Git that are just, I don't see how anyone could not love Git.
Like committing untested code. That's a good point.
Like, I'm sure it works without this debugger statement.
Yeah,
right?
And the thing is if you accidentally forget that one curly brace while you're unstaging or staging, yeah, you just broke everything.
Yeah, or JavaScript, you don't commit that alert, and now suddenly everything's broken.
So now that we're poo-pooing,
okay,
poo-pooing all over his tip.
Nah. You definitely have to, you want to be careful about that, but that's just general, like anything that you're going to commit, you want to be careful about.
No, I actually have used this, so I just like to poo-poo things.
Okay. I feel like we should have a link to poopery in the show notes.
Oh, we should. That's going in.
Resources we like.
It'll probably be an affiliate link. So if you click it and
For
buy
the
it,
resources you're done with, here's a resource we like.
That's awesome. There will be a link. All right, so mine, I actually have two, and that's only because of this particular episode. So the first one is, now that we also poo-pooed on Silverlight, I will say that if you are using Pluralsight and you are in a browser that has Silverlight, you will get much better results if you go to the settings on the Pluralsight video and say use Silverlight instead of the HTML5 web player. The HTML5 web player is terrible. It buffers all the time. It restarts. It's just, I don't understand why it's so bad, but it is. If you use Silverlight, it works perfectly every time. If you speed up the playback, it doesn't skip and pop, and I don't get it. So that's tip number one, seeing as how we plug Pluralsight all the time. The next one, going back to the Silverlight thing for mobile, there is another framework out there called Ionic. And if you go to ionicframework.com, it's basically AngularJS, their version of doing cross-platform mobile. And you can actually, after you write the application, you can deploy it to iOS, Android, all these other platforms. So if
Isn't that ironic?
Isn't it Ionic? So that's my tip. I think it's pretty cool. If you already are familiar with Angular, this is a really nice way to get started on doing a mobile application, because they have a lot of, built-in theme support and all that kind of stuff. So that it
says
looks
here
like
you need 10 years of Angular experience.
that's accurate. So there's my tips.
All right, and I just changed my tip, but so I don't want anyone poo-pooing anything. So I've got to recommend the Joel Spolsky books. It's,
Wait, why did you change it?
Yeah, I mean, like literally, he just changed it.
like just right now.
Wait, what are we talking about? Like an
Is
entire
this because
library?
of Unforgettable's comment?
Is this an entire library of books? That we're
No,
talking
it's only
about?
like three. There's actually two Joel on software books, which are collections of essays that he kind of curates, and he's got a couple in there too. But actually, what got me thinking about this was the first question we talked about with the kind of going from schoolwork to work. I think a big part of actually kind of learning the vocabulary we talked about is actually the business vocabulary as well, like the business of software. So I think he's got at least 3 books I know. I mentioned 2, and the other one is Smart and Gets Things Done, which is these are all great books, and they're kind of from the business side of software. So you're going to have a lot of really good articles in there about basically software development life cycles and shipping software and things like that are really important to be able to talk about. So I did just drop that in as my tip.
And the factory.
That's right. That's in there. Yep.
I feel like you got to say what your original one was, though. We can't let you get away with this.
All right. My original tip
this one's for you, Unforgettable.
There's another book, great book by Douglas Crockford called JavaScript: The Good Parts. And what I like about it is that it focuses on the good parts. And it does have a collection of not so great parts that are listed in an appendix, but it doesn't focus on them. It's a positive book, and it tells you all the cool things that you can and should do.
So if you wrote a book, it'd be the negative version.
No, I'm not if I wrote it this year.
JavaScript, the bad parts.
No, it would be, there's parts of JavaScript? It'd be a question.
Just JavaScript?
Right.
But I'm saying positive this year, so JavaScript, the good parts.
All right.
So I feel like one of these books could help out with, a programmer had a problem. He decided to use threads. Now, too, has he problems.
Nice. I like that one. Not that I don't like other ones.
Wait, what?
Anyway, so thanks for listening to Coding Blocks.
Yeah, so that wraps up this particular show. Hey, just so you guys know, we did get a couple other questions, and we'll just have to fit those into future episodes so that this doesn't go on to a 10-hour show. Yeah.
Yeah, but like we've said before, though, we really do appreciate any feedback you guys can provide. So, be sure to leave us some feedback on whatever your platform of choice of getting podcasts is, whether it be iTunes or Stitcher or Player FM or some other app that's out there. We really appreciate the reviews, and they do go a long way to help other people to find us as well, and we appreciate that.
And real quick, we did get a comment saying that they couldn't write a review on Stitcher. And
I think that was from the mobile app.
Yeah, if you are on mobile and you go to Stitcher.com, you don't get it. You actually have to either be on a desktop or you have to go to the webpage as the desktop version in order to see that. So
total first world problem.
Yeah, it's it's completely agreed. It's probably looking on his Note 3. So anyways, visit us at codingblocks.net where you can find our show notes, our examples, discussion, and more. And we do leave pretty tremendous show notes. So please do visit.
If we say so ourselves.
Yeah, we think so. And this will be actually www.codingblocks.net/episode 22.
Yep. And also make sure to send your feedback and questions to comments@codingblocks.net, and we will talk about it on air. And also make sure to follow us on Twitter. And if you go follow us on LinkedIn, that would be awesome. And, if you friend us, we would probably endorse you. Just saying.
Wow.
Do you need 10 years of Angular experience? Well, now you got it.
That's right.
I feel validated by my number of LinkedIn friends.
God, I hate social.
Wait, that's supposed to be my answer.
All right, everybody. We will be back soon.
There are 2 types of people in this world. Those who understand recursion and those who don't understand that there are 2 types of people in this world.
I'm smiling.
Wow, tough crowd.